In this video, we're going to look at simplifying complex fractions without variables. So the one thing we have to look at when we're looking at fractions is we have to realize what they really are. A fraction is just division. So how we've got this problem right here, we've got 9 divided by 9/7. So let's rewrite that. So I've got 9 divided by 9/7. Now it actually looks simpler right from there because I don't no longer have a fraction on top of a fraction. We now have to remember our rules for fractions. When we're dealing with fractions, if I have division, I can change that to multiplication by flipping over the second fraction. So in this case, I'm going to change that 9 and I'll make it over 1. Remember, any whole number I can always put over 1. I'm going to say times, and then I'm going to flip the second fraction over. So now, when we're multiplying fractions, I multiply straight across. So I have 63 over 9. And now I'm going to have to reduce this fraction, and this fraction reduces to 7. So my final answer is 7 for this one. The only difference between this problem and the last one I did is there's 2 fractions now instead of a whole number and a fraction. But we're going to do it the same way. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to split this and make this division. So it's 5 over 6 divided by 2 over 9. And now I'm going to take that and I'm going to keep the first fraction. I change it to multiplication and I flip over the second fraction. And I'm going to multiply straight across. So 5 times 9 is 45. And 6 times 2 is 12. Now I'm going to have to reduce my fraction again. The number that can go into 45 and 12 is 3. So I'm going to divide them both by 3. So I'm going to get 15 over 4. And that's my final answer. So I divided both problems by 3 to reduce it. So this problem looks a little more complex than the last couple problems we did because it has subtraction on the top and the bottom. So the first thing I have to do for this problem is I'm actually going to do those subtractions. We're going to look at the top first, then we'll look at the bottom. Then we'll worry about the actual division because at that point the problem is going to look no different than the problem I've been doing in the past. So let's look at the top. So I have 2/3 minus 1/5. So when we're subtracting fractions, I need to get a common denominator. So in this case, my common denominator is 15. So 3 times 5 is 15, so 2 times 5 is 10. 3 times 5 is 15, so 1 times 3 is 3. I then subtract, so my top is 7 over 15. Now my bottom is 7 over 2 minus 5 over 6. So my common denominator in this case is going to be 6. So I have 2 times 3 is 6, so 7 times 3 is 21. 6 times 1 is 6, so 5 times 1 is 5. I subtract those, and I get 16 over 6. Now, we're going to go put them together. So in this case, I have 7 over 15 divided by 16 over 6. So that's 7 over 15 divided by 16 over 6. So I'm going to change that. So the first one's 7 over 15. And I'm going to flip the second one, which is 6 over 16. And when I multiply those two together, I get 42 over 240. Now, I'm going to have to reduce that. So the 42 over the 240, I can divide them both by 2. So I have 21 over 120. And then I'm going to be able to divide that by 3. And I'm going to get 7 over 40, which is my final answer. So do make sure you reduce your fraction at the end to get the final answer. For the last problem, we're going to look at this one. And this one's similar to the last problem where it has something on the top and the bottom that I have to do. The one that makes this a little trickier is it's whole numbers on the top and the bottom after fractions instead of two fractions. But we're actually going to do the exact same steps. So we're going to look at the top first. So I have 4/5 minus 2. So I got to get a common denominator again. So my common denominator is going to be 5. Remember, any whole number is over 1. So I have 5 times 1 is 5, so that's 4. 1 times 5 is 5, so 2 times 5 is 10. So when I subtract that, I'm going to get negative 6 over 5. And now let's look at the bottom. So I have 9/4 plus 1. So I'm going to get, my common denominator is going to be 4. So 4 times 1 is 4, so 9 times 1 is 9. Then 1 times 4 is 4, so 1 times 4 is 4. I'm going to add those, so it's 13 over 4. So we're going to divide those two, so I get negative 6 over 5 divided by 13 over 4. So we're going to take the first fraction, keep it. The second fraction I'm going to flip, so it's 4 over 13. And I'm going to multiply, so I have negative 24 over 65. And this one, we actually cannot reduce it at all. So that's my final answer.